Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, we will discuss one more para summary exercise containing questions on para summary that are generally asked in CAT and other management entrance examinations. Before we begin, I would like you to attempt the exercise on your own first and then come back and watch the video. The link to the exercise is given in the description of the video. Please click on the link and attempt that exercise and then watch the video so that your understanding becomes complete and you are able to clearly identify the techniques that we use in arriving at the correct answer in para summary questions. We will straight away go to the first question. So the first question, the subparagraph is basically talking about two important issues that innovation has to or evolution has to tackle for the purpose of innovation. What is innovation? When evolution process goes on, new species are getting generated, and how these innovations are happening in the evolution process. And there are two issues that evolution has to tackle. One is the complex galaxy of gene circuits, means the gene circuits are having a mind-bogglingly immense terrain, means a very confusing and very complex large number of gene circuits are there. So evolution has to navigate these gene circuits. And the second problem or the second issue is the same kind of issues or the same mind-bogglingly immense galaxy of gene circuits. Same issue means the complex array of metabolic networks. This is the second issue. So two issues that evolution has to tackle or evolution has to face for the purpose of navigate. Navigate means evolution has to understand and go through. That is, the one is the complex gene circuit, and the next is the equally complex metabolic networks. And then the passage is talking about why metabolic networks. What is the issue with metabolic networks? The passage is not focusing on gene circuits. The passage main focus is on the what are the problems associated with metabolic networks that evolution has to navigate. So it says that metabolism is basically talking about digesting our food. So for the purpose of digestion, what it has to do, it has to find fuel, whatever fuel happens to be on hand. So typically the metabolism of organisms are based on glucose, ethanol, or citrate. So these are the three main compounds that generally help in metabolism in microorganisms. And any of these compounds the metabolism can be done using any of these compounds, so that they have more options for survival. So it is not necessary that all three have to be there. Any of these compounds is enough for metabolism, metabolic machinery to function in microorganisms. But the problem is that how easy to adapt to other fields. So apart from this, the problem in innovation is that the metabolism has to, or microorganisms have to adapt to other forms of fuel that are available readily. So it is not necessary that these three compounds are always available or always on hand. So when evolution has to innovate, it has to adapt to other fuels also. But even in the case of these three common metabolic fuels, the number of possible metabolisms is again astronomical. So even when you are talking about glucose, ethanol, and citrate, the relatively small list of common metabolic fuels, the number of combinations or possible metabolic configurations are very, very huge. So when we talk about other fuels that are available, the number of such metabolic configurations will again be very huge. So this is the problem. So the passage is basically talking about the configuration of metabolic networks or metabolic combinations that will have to be tackled when microorganisms learn to adapt to other forms of fuel which are different from the three common or the three basic compounds like glucose, ethanol, and citrates. This is the essence of the passage. So once you understand the essence, the answer becomes very easy. Innovation happens in evolution when the microorganisms are able to overcome the immense terrain of gene circuits, correct, and are able to adapt to the huge number of metabolic configurations in all the available fuel sources, correct. So this is basically true. It says that innovation will be able to or innovation will happen in evolution when the two problems can be overcome. So a possible answer, keep it in your mind. Option B, the concept of gene circuits is as complex, if not more than metabolic networks. Is this implied in the passage that the gene circuit complexity is more than the either equal to or more than the metabolic network complexity? So the passage is not saying which one is less complex or which one is more complex. It says that two important issues are there in evolution or innovation in evolution. One is the complexity of gene circuits. Another one is the complexity of metabolic networks. Whether one is more complex or one is less complex, this is not stated in the passage, as a result of which we will not be able to take this as a good answer. Option C, the survival of microorganisms is highly dependent on the adaptability to fuel sources which should be rich in glucose, ethanol, or citrate. What is the problem here? First problem is survival. See, we are not talking about survival, we are talking about innovation. So when innovation happens in microorganisms, it is dependent on the adaptability to fuel sources. And what kind of fuel sources? Other sources of fuel, which is different from the common thing compounds such as glucose, ethanol, or citrate. So whereas this option says that we should be other sources of fuel which should be rich in glucose, ethanol, or citrate. No, the passage says that normally metabolism happens through fuel sources which have compounds like glucose, ethanol, or citrate. But for innovation, microorganisms have to look for other sources of fuel and to adapt to these sources of fuel. So that is a complex issue. So whereas this option says that adaptability to fuel sources which should be rich in glucose, ethanol, or citrate. This again is wrong. So two problems here. This is wrong. Option B, evolution process has to tackle not only the complex gene circuits, but the issues in adapting to different types of fuels available for metabolism. Again, true. This is again a good answer. Evolution process has to tackle not only the complex gene circuit. The complexity of the gene circuit is one issue. Another issue is adapting to different types of fuels available for metabolism. Yes, when you are adapting to different types of fuel, what will happen? Lot of metabolic configurations will come. So that again will make the process complex. So this again is a good answer. So now you have two good answers, A and B. How can you select the best answer? So again, read carefully. What is A? A is talking about how evolution will happen in or innovation will happen in evolution. Means when these problems are overcome. So what is actually A? A is an inference. Means from whatever facts that are given to us, we can understand that innovation will happen in evolution when the two problems, that is complexity of genes as well as the complexity of metabolic configurations, are overcome by the microorganisms. So this is an inference that we can make from the passage. So we are not asked to find an inference, we are asked to find a summary. So when we are talking about a summary, any option that talks about the facts in the passage will be the better answer. So option B is talking about the facts given in the passage. Evolution process has to tackle not only the complex gene circuits, but issues in adapting to different types of fuel available for metabolism. So D is a better answer than A because A is basically an inference. It is not a summary, whereas D is a summary. It is talking about the facts given in the passage as it is, whereas A is talking about whatever inferences we can understand from whatever facts are given in the passage. That is why A will not be the answer, B will be the answer. Okay, go to the next question. It is talking about some research done by certain researchers and what they have found out. So they have found out that when you talk about domestication of plant species, means domestication means what? Conversion of wild plants into domestic plants that are grown by human beings for the purpose of cultivation, for growing crops, etc. That is called domestication. And in the process of development of orphan crops. What are orphan crops? Even if you don't understand what are orphan crops, it is not going to be a problem. But for the sake of your understanding, orphan crops are crops that are found in a small area or in a regional crops that are then developed to be cultivated over a large area. That are called orphan crops. Means crops that are basically belonging to or basically characteristic of a small geographical area, But then these crops are made or cultivated over large areas, so certain genetic changes have to be made so that they become adapted to the climatic conditions, soil configuration, etc. in other areas, so that they can be extensively cultivated. That is called an orphan crop. So the passage says that in the case of domestication of plant species and in the case of improvement of orphan crops, the what we have to do is we have to focus on certain genes that are responsible for production of two particular hormones. They are florigen and anti-florigen. So across any species of plants or across a wide array of plant species, it is not one for one particular plant species across a wide lineage of different plant lineages. You only have to focus on this common set of genes that are producing these two hormones, which are florigen and anti-florigen. So if you are able to make some changes in these two hormones, both the domestication as well as the improvement of orphan crops can be done in a very productive manner. So that is why it says that the focusing on this handful of genes could accelerate the improvement of orphan crops or even enable the de novo domestication. What is de novo domestication? The new domestication or the fresh domestication of wild plants with crop potential. So, in both the domestication as well as in improvement of orphan crops, you only have to focus on these two genes, which are two set of genes which are producing these two hormones, that is florigen and anti-florigen. So, this is the basic understanding in the passage. Now, go to the options. Two key hormones, florigen and anti-florigen, are responsible for the flowering and growth of the plants across different lineages. Yes, it is talking about the hormones. So, good answer. No problems are there here. Option B, accelerated growth and improvement of orphan crops could be achieved by focusing on a few genes. So it is talking about only accelerated growth and improvement of orphan crops. It is not talking about domestication of wild plant species. So as a result of which, this is talking only about one aspect of the paragraph, not the full aspect. So it is not a good summary. Option C, while florigen and anti-florigen are crucial in enhancing the domestication potential of different plant species, their role in improving the orphan crop has not been so clearly established. So this is very clearly contradicting the passage by saying that only in the domestication potential these two hormones are effective, whereas in improvement of orphan crops it is not effective. Whereas the passage very clearly says that both in domestication and in improvement, these two hormones are very much effective. Very clearly contradicting, so you can ignore it. Option D, scientists have established that domestication and orphan crop improvement in different plant lineages can be achieved by successfully focusing on the same set of genes. So again, true. It is talking about domestication and orphan crop improvement, and in different plant lineages, it can be achieved by focusing on the same set of genes which are producing these two hormones. So, which is a better answer? How can you find a better answer? I have already told you, whenever you have faced with two options which are good answers, any option that talks about the essential idea in the passage more specifically will be the better answer. So, which is the option that talks about the essential idea in the passage more specifically? This one, because it talks about domestication and orphan crop improvement, and different plant lineages can be achieved by successfully focusing on the same set of genes. Whereas option is only talking about which are the hormones which are responsible for the flowering and growth of hormones across different lineages. It is only a part of the paragraph, whereas this option D talks about the gist of the entire paragraph in a specific manner. So A will not be the good summary, D is the better summary. So option D will be the answer. All right, question number 3 talks about the food webs and how the interconnected food chains are, how food webs are made of interconnected food chains and how they will help us in understanding that changes in the ecosystem will make certain changes in the participants of the food chain or the different species that are involved in the food web. So food web is made up of interconnected food chain, and they will help us understand how any changes in the ecosystem affects the players in the chain. And then it goes on to talk about the aquatic food web. And in the aquatic food web, the phytoplankton and algae are the basis, means the lowest rung of the food web, and they are eaten by primary consumers, because we know food web to describe who eats whom and in ecological community. So in an aquatic food web, Phytoplankton and algae are the lowest one. They are eaten by primary consumers like zooplankton, small fish, and crustaceans. And these primary consumers are eaten by fish, sharks, coral, baleen etc. And then top ocean predators, large sharks, billfish, dolphins, tooth whales, etc. Eat these people, and then humans consume aquatic life from every section. So we can say that starting from phytoplankton, reaching humans, this is the aquatic food web. So at the bottom, it is the phytoplankton. At the top, the human beings. That is the food web, aquatic food web. So food webs are consistent of interconnected food chains. They help us in understanding the complexities of the ecosystem. And then we talk about aquatic food webs. So option A, food webs help us understand how changes to ecosystem affect many different species, both directly and indirectly. Good one, it is talking about the introductory sentence, but it is not talking about aquatic food webs. So this is a probable answer. Keep it in your mind. Phytoplankton and algae form the basis of aquatic food webs, while humans are on the top. This is only talking about the aquatic food webs. So this also is a possible answer. Keep it in your mind. Option C, predators of one ecosystem become prey of another ecosystem, and humans are the predators of the predators. So it says that humans are the top predators in all ecosystems. Okay, we are talking, or we have been given proof regarding only one food web, which is the aquatic food web. So we cannot say that humans are the predators of the predators or the top predator in any ecosystem. And also predators of one ecosystem become prey of another ecosystem. That also is not given in the passage. So two problems are there. So this is not a good answer. Option D, food webs define the food chain of the ecosystem. Phytoplankton and algae form the basis of aquatic food webs and human sorrow. So it is a better answer. You have three answers here. Again, the same principle that we have used, any option that gives you a comprehensive idea regarding the gist of the passage in a specific manner will be the better answer. So it is option A is only talking about the introductory part. Option B is only talking about the subsequent part. Option D is combining both by saying food webs define the food chain of the ecosystem, and phytoplankton and algae from the basis of aquatic food webs and humans. So you can say that this is the better answer, whereas these are all talking about only one aspect of the passage. This option talks about the entire passage, so that is why it's a better summary than all the other options. All right, go to the fourth one. So fourth one is talking about a movie shot by a Pakistani movie director. It is talking about a deaf mute girl who lost her way and reached Pakistan. There she was rescued by a Pakistani family. Since she was deaf mute, they were not able to get any details out of her. So they named her Geeta. And then many people tried to locate the whereabouts of this girl, but they were not able to do that. And the film is talking about that. But the passage says that the film is as a dark side. Why it has a dark side? Because the makers could have included the details regarding this particular girl in the movie, like the person to be contacted, her photo, her contact details, etc. If it had been published in the movie, some people in India who might have seen the movie would be able to identify her and then be able to contact the people in Pakistan, and they were able to bring her back to her family. So that was not done by the filmmakers. As a result of which, the girl is still living with the Pakistani family. So this is the problem with the film. So that is the passage. Now, going for a summary, the movie makers are only interested in cashing in on the plight of the protagonist and had no real empathy towards her. The movie makers were interested only in making profit from the problems of the protagonist. Is it implied in the passage that the movie makers were only interested in making profit? No. And they had no real empathy towards her. Whether the movie makers had any empathy or not, that again is not implied in the passage. So this is actually an assumption, a wrong assumption that is drawn from this particular paragraph. This cannot be a summary. Option B, the dark side of the movie is lack of sensitivity in handling the subject. The dark side of the movie is not about the lack of sensitivity. It is about not giving the details of the girl in the movie, which should have helped in repatriating or rescuing the girl. That is the problem. It is not about lack of sensitivity in handling the subject. Means The filmmakers were very insensitive in portraying the girl in the movie. That is the meaning of lack of sensitivity. That we cannot say. It is talking about a problem in depicting the girl in the movie. That is not stated in the passage whether the movie makers were sensitive or insensitive in handling the subject in the movie. So again, wrong. This is again a wrong assumption taken from the paragraph. Option C, movies have some social responsibility too, which the makers of this film failed to acknowledge. So this is a correct assumption from the passage, but it is not a summary. It says that movies have certain social responsibility also. The makers of this film failed to acknowledge that social responsibility. True, that is correct. They have failed. If they had understood that social responsibility, they would have done something to help her go back to her people in India. So this is again a right assumption. It is not a summary. It is again a right assumption that we are drawing from the paragraph. Since it is not a summary, we cannot take it as a answer. Option D, the movie had the potential to make a difference to the fate of the protagonist in real life, but failed in doing so. This is the understanding. Means the movie could have made some difference to the girl by giving her contact details so that she could have been rescued, but the movie failed in doing so. This is the what the passage is hinting at. So this is the good summary or the only summary available. So all others are assumptions. So A and B are wrong assumptions. C is a correct assumption. D is the summary. So option D will be the answer. All right, question number five. So question number five is talking about godmen and god women. What are godmen and god women? They are people who pretend to be representatives of God, and it says that in this land where pantheism and idol worship have been thriving, it is not surprising that godmen and god women are thriving. Right? What is pantheism? Pantheism means a principle of religion in which God is equated with whatever things that exist in the universe. So the pantheism says that God is not a separate entity. Whatever we see in the universe is a representation of God. So basically, the Hindu philosophy is a pantheistic philosophy where it says that everything in the universe is a representation or it is God is residing in whatever things that are available in the universe. And idol worship, yes, where God is represented in the form of human idols. Or what is happening? So here also, God is not seen as a separate entity. God is seen as a part of a human being. So human beings are depicted as gods, or gods are given the form of and shape of human beings. So pantheism and idol worship has existed in this country for a long time. Means it is because of the anthropomorphic roots of divinity. What is anthropomorphic? Human-like characteristic. Anything that has got human-like characteristics. So divinity or God is considered to have human-like characteristics. So that is why pantheism and human idol worship are thriving because anthropomorphic roots of divinity means anything divine is considered to have human-like characteristics. So that has been the system in this land. That is why its personification in the forms of living men and women established with preserved as an equally equine tradition. Equine tradition means equally completely used or repeatedly used tradition means since the gods and goddesses of India are modeled on human beings, or we have a pantheistic and idol worshipping tradition where gods and goddesses are considered to have human like characteristics, it is only natural that god men and god women or there are people who pretend themselves to be incarnations of God, living men and women who pretend themselves to be incarnations of God, and they are embellishing themselves with whatever preferences of that day or whatever things are proper in that day. They will embellish themselves or they will project themselves in that fashion, and this has been going on for a long time. So just like idol worship and pantheism and anthropomorphic divinity has been going on in this land for a long time, this kind of god men and god women pretending to be representatives of God and embellished with whatever things are fashionable during that day. That also has a long tradition. That is why sipping water is the Dharmaguru, a godman, has dipped his big toe, has been deemed the iconic moment of experiencing divinity incarnate. So that is why a lot of people, when they visit a godman, and they have absolutely no problem in drinking water in which the godman has dipped his feet, and they think that this is the extreme blessing of divinity. So that is why it is an embellished with preferences of the name. But then we talk about a particular god woman called Radhima. Normally, all these godmen and women, they dress like monks. Monks means they dress like sannyasis or priests in the monkish garb, means in the clothes of a monk, so that to project themselves as God, divine representatives. So that is why they form a monkish garb. But even God women are doing this because it is a dominant imagery to garner followers. So not just God men, God women also uh, dress themselves up in the form of monks so that to attract followers, because only then people will believe that they are representatives of God. But Radhema is a different god woman in the sense that she does not believe in this kind of dressing in the form in other worldliness, means dressing in the form of a monk. She dresses in slick costumes. Instead, she dresses in fashionable clothes, and she is thus desiring the satisfying the desiring of her ordinary happy-go-lucky follower. And in a way, it is helping her to bypass the embarrassment of being caught surreptitiously, means secretly indulging in sexual pleasures that most godmen want to do. So most godmen are secretly indulging in sexual pleasures, even though they project themselves to be incarnations of God. They are always secretly indulging in sexual pleasures. So when they are discovered, it is very embarrassing. Whereas Radhema, since she has no such pretensions of dressing up like a monk, she dresses in very fashionable costumes to satisfy her ordinary follower, and so she is not having any embarrassment when she is caught indulging in sexual pleasures. This is the meaning. So it is basically talking about the difference between other godmen and godwomen and Radhema, a particular godwoman, and why godmen and women are thriving in this particular land. So now going to the options. Radhema is the embodiment of the modern day bourgeoisie god man or woman who claims that materialism with the land. Correct. So what is bourgeoisie? Anybody who is believing in physical pleasures or physical acquisition of wealth or pleasures is bourgeoisie. So we have seen that Radhema is a bourgeoisie because she is also indulging in physical pleasures. And he claims her materialism with Elan, means who does not have any problem in projecting herself as materialistic. That is why she is dressing herself up in fashionable clothes. So this is a good answer. She is the embodiment of the modern day bourgeoisie god man or woman. Correct. So a good answer. Keep it in your mind. Option B. Radhaima is one of the few godmen or women who embody anthropomorphism in its entirety. Anthropomorphism is human-like characteristics. So yes, she is representing the human-like characteristics of godmen or godwomen. But is one of the few. Do we know that? Means very few godmen or women are there who are embodying this kind of anthropomorphism completely. We don't know. We know that only know that unlike the monkish god owned by the fleet of godmen, Radhima prefers an opinion. So Radhima is different in the sense that she is not doing what most of the godmen are doing. But is she one of the few godmen or women? We don't know. So that is why this option is wrong. Then Radhaima is a modern day incarnation of the pantheistic gods and goddesses of India. This is the problem here. See, Radhima is an incarnation of God. Radhima is not an incarnation of the God. She is an incarnation of the, or she is a separate incarnation of the God, man, or woman in India. She is not a god or goddess. She is claiming to be an incarnation, but she is a modern day incarnation of the God, man, or God, woman. So she is not a god or goddess. So again, wrong. Again, the same problem here. Radhima with all her family embodies the virtues and vices of the multitudes of gods and goddesses. It is the godmen or godwomen that we Indians have. And one more problem is there here. See, the passage is not saying anything about India. In this land, we are saying so. we are assuming that when we talk about this land, we are talking about India, whereas the passage does not specifically say that we are talking about India. So that is why the gods and goddesses wrong, godmen and godwomen. India is wrong. So that is why this again is wrong. So this is the problem. So that is why B, C, D, and are all wrong. A is the only correct answer that is representing. That is a good summary of the passage. So once you understand this passage, the answer becomes very simple. Most of the people will skip this passage because it is slightly difficult to understand. But once you understand this, the answer becomes very simple. Such passages, try to spend some time on the passage, try to make sense of it. Most of the time, if the passage is complex, the options will be easy. So if you are able to understand the passage well, you can easily find out the answer. That's all for now. I think you have found the video to be useful. If you have liked the video, please like, share, and subscribe, and try to maximize my reach so that I get motivated to come out with further videos that are useful for management and business. Thank you. Bye bye.